Hello, humans, and hello to all those non-humans and ascended master humans also watching. Gita Rose here. Thank you for tuning in. This is another episode of Gabbing with Gita, and this episode is with the vocal channel Rob Gauthier. We shot this episode in November of 2020, so quite a few months ago. And well, quite a lot of things have changed and quite a lot of things haven't changed. But I just wanted to drop in here and give a little hello from me in the now and me in the future in comparison to the me that is in the video with Rob. That made sense. I felt as though things are absolutely still relevant. Rob and I talked about a lot of things that are, well, like the true nature of reality, always timeless. So here we go. A big thank you to Rob as well for always trusting and being in the flow of the timing of all things. Hello to everyone here and now listening and watching. My unconditional love to you, and it is my aim that you enjoy the episode. Have a beautiful now. Aloha! All right, we are rolling. Hello, humans, and hello to all those non-humans and ascended master humans also watching. Gita Rose here. Thank you for tuning in. This is another episode of Gabbing with Gita, and I am joined today with Rob Gauthier, ET Whisper, vocal channel, author, and host of the radio show, The Enlightenment Evolution Hour. The ET Whisperer reminds us, you are the greatest force in your own life, and do not replace your own discernment for any other's teachings. It is your life, and the answers always come from you. We only hope to guide you in your eternal journey as souls. Hello, Rob. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
Doing great. How are you, Gita?
Oh, I'm so well. Thank you. Thank you sincerely for joining me today. It's so fun to have you here.
I'm happy to be here. It's been a while since we've had a chat, and to be able to catch up will be great.
It has. I don't know if we've ever actually talked like this, like face to face. We haven't met in person. And all of the other interactions that we had for the channel panel, which we'll get to in a bit, was like via messenger and email.
It was. It absolutely was. Yeah, this is the first time face to face, digitally speaking.
Yes. Face to face in this dimension. And that's part of the fun, really, of this series that I'm doing of the Gabbing with Gita show, is to just really hold the space for honest, authentic conversation. And it's really fun for me to connect with people where I really have to stop and think. I'm like, have I met that person in person? I'm like, oh, wait, no, I haven't. Not in this timeline anyway. So yeah, this is so fun. And I just so sincerely appreciate to connect with you in this way.
I appreciate it. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it is. So to get the ball rolling, for anyone who maybe isn't familiar with you and what you do, in a brief synopsis, a brief explanation, who is Rob?
Who is Rob isn't a very brief idea, but if we get it down to a small science, Rob is a person who loves to share what I do with others, and what I do is channeling. I've been doing it for over 12 years, a little over 10 publicly. I've channeled multiple beings, over probably 200 or 300 by now. And I love it. It's one of my favorite things. And I know most of your audience is already hip to what channeling is, so I don't really have to explain too much. But I'm a deep trance channeler too. I teach people how to channel for people who don't know how, because everyone can do it despite what some might tell you. And, I'm a father to two wonderful kids, and a husband to a beautiful woman who's my partner, and not just my partner, but my actual other half of my heart and my soul. And I'm the son and a brother too. I got some sisters, and my mom's still with us. My father isn't, but so I wear many hats, but the channeling one is the one that probably most people know me for.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the brief of the not so brief being that is Rob.
I try. The one thing about me is I can talk forever, so I try. I try not
Good.
to do that
Let's
most of the time.
let's dive in. Let's gab. That's what it's all about. It's the Gabbing with Gita hour. So I have more questions about your specific channeling, and we'll let things unfold. But the question that I've been starting everything off with in this series is, how has 2020 been for you so far? What has this passageway of transformation been like for you?
2020 is a huge year. I knew it was going to be a big year a long time ago when I first met Treb. I didn't realize what kind of big it would be. I knew 2020 and 2021 would be kind of like the last accelerated years of growth and learning. And it has been a roller coaster of ups and downs. What's funny about 2020 is 2020 and 2019 were the first 2 years in a long time that I tried to go solely back into my earth experience just because I felt I needed to. I have a 20-year-old son who's to turn 21 in April, and he has some issues. He's got cerebral palsy, so he depends 100% on all of us to take care of him. Me and Kalima when he's here with us, and his mom when he's there. And at that point, he's a big job to do. It requires a lot of work, a lot of energy. But I've been used to that. I had 21 years of experience. No big deal. But Kalina, my wife, my partner, and I have tried to have a baby probably for about 3 or 4 years before 2019, and we decided. We're approaching the age of 40. As I just turned 40 in January, I said, if it happens, it happens. If not, no big deal. We'll stop trying, and it wasn't that we were even trying at that point. It's just like, if it does, it does. And out of the blue last year, Kalina got pregnant, and we ended up having a very long pregnancy. Kalina got pretty sick in the last half of her pregnancy. And just her being pregnant brought me right back down to the earth level. I used to kind of have both shoes in both areas of my life. I needed to be grounded and work with the earth energy to take care of my son and to do things in life. But I also needed my etherical, spiritual side, which requires me to live in higher energies. So it was always a balancing act, one that was a little rough sometimes, a little easier sometimes, but for the most part, I had a pretty good handle. And instantly, when we found out the baby was coming, like animalistic, right back to earth, just sticking here, except for the few moments out of the week that I channel. And we quit making YouTube videos. We quit doing a lot of stuff we were doing, the events on the road. And we focused just on getting ready for the baby. And the baby comes, and it was a rough birth. She had a few problems in the first few days when she was born. So that even put us even further into the earth mode. And by the time she started getting old enough where we could relax a little bit, here comes the coronavirus thing. So this is where I've been living in this earth vibration so long. Normally I would say, okay, we'll approach this in any given simple way. With my son, because of his issues, he also has immunity issues. So that means if the flu season's around, I would put a mask on anyway when I go in public. Just because if he gets it, he can get sick. And the metaphysical side of me says you attract what you get what, if you keep your thoughts and energy up, you can prevent all this. But the dad side of me overrides that every time. If you guys out there, any of you have kids, you kind of understand kids are the only thing in life that becomes more important feeling than yourself, or more important in actions or behavior. So, and that's what I meant, always riding between the earth and the etherical. And so this comes, and I try to treat it like that, but the earth side kicks me. So it did. It grabbed a hold of me for about the first month when everyone's panicking and buying up all the toilet paper in the world. I'm in the grocery store, with my mask on, getting everything, and kind of having a miniature meltdown with everybody else, if I'm being honest about it. And that's, after about a month or so of that, I calmed back down. I realized that a lot of things that had been said, or a lot of the way I was feeling, was just being reactive out of pure panic mode. And I started relaxing and kind of leveling back out. And once I did that, then I was able to handle things a bit more. I'm in Michigan. We're in a state where, if you don't wear a mask, they pretty much throw you in jail or, fine you, anything like that. So I know this mask thing is a whole huge issue in itself. That's why I try not to get into it. But the only reason it's a big issue is because it's kind of been made political, and people who think that the virus is real, they'll wear a mask. People who don't, they don't. And for me, I think both are fine and okay. Everybody do their own thing. People live and let live type situation, which is the way I've always been. But because of the politics involved with it, even talking about it kind of can get you riled up on Facebook and get a whole thread of people. So anyway, the whole thing with the mask was about the vibration of energy that was around me and that I was going through. I went through it all, and finally, after I calmed down about it, I realized that I'm going to create what I need. And the thing we do as parents too, I think we sometimes take away the legitimacy of our children's creations too. And this is what I'm trying to balance. I'm like, well, I got to protect them from the virus, because even if it is, even if it's been blown way out of proportion, if there's a 0.0005% chance that he gets it, that's still enough for me to take all the precautions that I could to make sure he doesn't, simple parent thing. But then after getting back into channeling, because after the baby became a few months old, then I went back to my regular schedule. And that's the thing I realized about channeling too. When I started channeling, I stopped meditating, because channeling was my centering, my meditation. And when you go away from that for a while, it does. It pulls you out of that feeling of meditating. And when I started going back into that every night, I started recentering my own energy. And then talking with Treb, he would remind me the same thing that he would always do. Do you think that if Jeremy wanted the virus, that that you could prevent that? And I was like, oh my God, again, as dad, try to not an intentional take away the validity of his creations, but try to side work it, try to make a workaround for it. And that doesn't work either. So 2020 in general has been both a struggle and a blessing, because all these things have gone on with worrying about my son, but also with our daughter. She was born with a condition that has several things that could be wrong. And then panic mode set in. Oh my God, we could have 2 kids with special needs that have all these issues. And then we go through everything, and almost all the big issues that could happen weren't there. She had a 70% chance of a heart defect with the syndrome that she has, and nothing, 0%. So I was like, see, again, I was trying to take away the validity of the creatorship of this beautiful 1-year-old baby, when then the anxiety, the nervousness, the worry about all of that for nothing, because she's going to create what she needs in her life. And the reason I react the way I do is because she wanted to create with a parent that she knew would go a little crazy and make sure everything's good, and then get her through to where she needs to be too. I tell you, you learn a lot through your kids about creatorship, because you can do whatever you try to and whatever you want to, thinking that you might be able to make a difference. And the only real difference that parents make is when they love their kids and support them. And that's the real difference. Everything else is a mental exercise for the parents, not for anything else.
Yeah.
But that's my 2020 in a nutshell. It's been 99.9% about my family. And that's something I had to reattach to too, because throughout my channeling, I spent so much time with that. For the 2 or 3 years before that, I needed to re-anchor to my family, to grow my relationship, not just with my kids, but with Kalima too. And to do that, So even though all these things felt intense and there was fear, anxiety, concern, worries, and concern for the larger collective, seeing people going crazy, seeing people, verbally assaulting each other on a daily basis on YouTube about, or on Facebook and YouTube about politics, it's all this stuff was just crazy. But in the long run, I said it best when I mentioned on Facebook, I think 2020 with the virus specifically, that the coronavirus is more, it's less of a virus and more of a truth serum, because it's told every single one of us more about ourselves than we could ever have found out in a 5-year period. It's a blessing. And even though it sucked, it was a blessing.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing all of that. And first off, congratulations on the baby. And I'm so happy that everyone is well in your family and household. And yes, sincerely, thank you for your honesty and your authenticity. And that's something that I've really admired in how you present yourself as someone who's in the public, is you're still very much yourself, and you're so authentic with the different challenges, these very, very deep, very real, very earth-based challenges that you have, and how you and Kalina really alchemize it and learn from these beings and reconnect with your higher selves, and really are putting your walk to the talk, right? It's so evident that you do that. And I think it's so inspiring, again, of how you choose to represent yourself, because you're just so authentic. So thank you again for everything that you've shared. And yeah, I love how you said that, the truth serum. Because I do think, regardless of where we think that this may have come from, right? And then we get to the whole kind of quandary of like, all truths are true, but then there's the consensus reality true, and now we're in the level of we can know enough to know that we don't even know, right? And we're entering so fully into the place of like choosing whatever story gives us the lesson that we can alchemize and use the most, right? And I think so many of us in the community of like you were saying when you first started, is you had a feeling that something was going to happen 2020, 2021. I think we all did. Like, we all knew on some level, like something was going to have to break, something was going to have to happen, something was coming. We just didn't really know exactly what. And I think even though the rug was pulled out from all of us, and we've all had our moments of panic, of fear, of complete reaction, I think so many of us really got like, oh, okay, we're here. Okay, this is kind of what we felt coming all along. We weren't really quite sure how it was going to go down, but okay, this is what it looks like. This is an interesting, very multidimensional, very layered story that we are living in. So how do we, make the best of it? And also, again, what you were saying too, I think so many of us, it's been such a truth serum and such a very blunt reflection of what it is that we need to work on, or what aspects it is that we've missed within ourselves, or what really deep, dense belief systems or whatever traumas that we need to look at and clear. And I know for myself, it's been this, because just my life is different. It's really just me and myself, and I'm a single, woman who's just, it's just me, and I have a very different set of scenarios. And I know for me, it's been a bit of like the guilt complex coming in, of being like, oh, I'm like, everything's actually really going quite well for me, like, oh, whoa. And then kind of dealing with that little bit of guilt. Or then there's also the sensation of like, when's mine gonna come, right? Like, everyone is getting their moment, like, oh, okay, like, when is my moment gonna happen, where I really get razzled. But I think it's that level of being ready for it, right? Almost kind of, not in ways preparing for the worst, but taking certain precautions, or at least for me, this is how I go about certain things, maybe in regards to like the idea of the mask, is kind of to a certain extent like playing by the rules, or honoring these certain things that are coming up to us, that are really reflecting those deep parts of our own fear, and those deep parts of our belief systems, whether it's control, or forgetting that our children have their own wills, or just like things that we may not have seen, you know, little specks of dust, and being like, oh, okay, well, maybe wearing the mask has some level of me honoring those really, really dense belief systems, or like the blind spots of our fear. So I think looking at all of these different things that we're seeing in our reality and really allowing ourselves to feel these denser emotions is actually what is preparing us for whatever the next leg needs to be. And I know for me, in my experiences with channeling, and I have to meditate. I'm a Gemini, and I'm like going all over the place all the time. So I have to meditate regardless if I'm channeling or not. It's like it needs to happen. But I know for me, in my experiences, and perhaps you'd like to touch on this kind of opening for an idea, because I'm just so curious. Like, I know for me, when I go into the altered state and I'm providing a session with Bella, or even sometimes it's just the feeling of it will come around. But certainly after those moments where you fully, you know, gone and had a session, I come out and I just feel this sense of understanding, just this level of knowing, and that deep unconditional just awareness and love. So for you, I know that you touched on a bit when you said that you started channeling again, but how has it been for you during this time, really having these perspectives and then applying it? I know you touched on it, but I want to go a little bit deeper, because I just think it's so interesting.
You know, for me, it might be a little different. When I come out of my channeling, I'm feeling a little ungrounded because I go very deep. And I go so deep that I don't often listen to the conversations. Sometimes when there's something I need to hear, then I might hear it. But when I'm doing my session with someone else, then me and Trev are spending our time together and talking.
Sure, yeah.
So it's given me a lot of extra time to lean on my guide and say, hey, you know, what's going on? And he always tells me the exact same thing I know he's going to tell me. He always tells me exactly what I need to hear, even though I already knew it. It's a reminder of those things that we know, because when you channel long enough, you kind of understand the basic components of everything. The application of it is the situation that defeats most humans on Earth. You know that you shouldn't, do this or that or this, but as humans, we develop our own habits, our own personalities, and we do stuff that's not great. I mean, people get overweight because they eat food they know they're not supposed to eat, or they're not active enough. Being someone who is personally overweight, it's kind of a pain in the neck, because my own emotional instability is very, very seeable to the public. Some people can go in and have a horrible day and smile and say, hi, how are you? Everything's fine over here. And you're like, oh, okay, that seems legitimate. But for me, I literally wear it on the outside. So these types of things, I know what I'm supposed to do to manifest. I know what thoughts and what emotions and what situations are good and what aren't. Having Trev there to reflect, though, is always wonderful, because and Trev has a way. Trev's great. Trev's like love personified, but he's also knows me as well as I think I know myself. So when I'm talking to me, he can tell me the thing that I already know in a way that's going to make me listen to it. And this is what he and Ardif do with other people while me and Trevor are having the talk. And the situations that are difficult for me in the last couple of years have been all very earth-based. And as much as most ETs don't know about the earth experience unless they've been around humans for a long time and kind of understand the psychology, or personally intimately connected to humans a long time to kind of see and feel and understand that experience, then it's kind of lost on some of them. And the good thing is Trev has been so intimately connected to my energy. He knows all my personal hardships very well, and I think that helps him with other people. But it is a very unique thing to hear other people when they share with me what the session was about, and some of the things that they've gone through. Because when I do a session, I always try to cut out a little time before to catch up with people who have sessions regularly or who I know, or to, let people share what they want beforehand. And the thing I've learned most in my reflections from talking to people have been the application issues of what they know, or just not knowing what to do with themselves when they're going through that hard time. And the guilt for not feeling, or for having the experience of having a really good experience. I've also talked to a lot of people who felt that too. And something I've noticed about people who help other people, whether they're channelers or energy workers, whatever, I notice that they tend to go through things before or after the collective energy does. And most of the time when they do it before, it's because they need to have that experience in order to help people who have gone through, who are getting ready to go through that. Or when they have it after, it's something that they've helped enough people with, they know how to do it on the afterward if they don't need a really big issue in their life to teach them something great, right? So I've noticed this, and I think a lot of the things that were happening before with me, concerned about the baby coming, things like that, actually helped me ground into the earth energy. So by the time that the crazy got there, I was already in the crazy for a long time. I had already been there for 6 months of the pregnancy, plus she was probably 4 months, about 6 months old. So I'd been there for like 9 months. So I'd already kind of done that. And it gave me the opportunity to, normally like politics, I would know about politics. I understand politics, but I didn't mess with it too much. I would look at it here and there, but when I'm doing the earth thing, of course I got to join into politics and see what really going on there. And of course I dove into that for a few months. And what I realized is that the virus being politicized made both of them suck. And then, sorry, it's just, I'm really jaded about politics right now, so forgive me if it sounds that way. I've been around it too long.
No forgiveness needed or required. Like, go for it. This is what this platform is all about. Please go talk.
The politics are a horrible thing, man. I'm personally, I try to be as neutral person as I can, but getting into politics will either rip you to one side or the other, or rip you in half. That's kind of what politics is designed to do. But the politics, the reason I was bringing it up is politics, the mask, those energies of representation, they're all different meanings for different people. Some people can get into politics and it betters them because it gives them something to put their energy into. They can help other people. They can bring about good causes to the forefront of everyone's attention and help make change. And then there are people who live, breathe, eat the nightmare side of politics. The we hate you because you're not us people, or the people, and this is one of my biggest heartaches about politics. It's not the politics itself. Politics have always been crap. They've always been divisive. They've always been us or you. But when you see people in our community who have dove so deeply in it that they can't sleep at night, or that they can't, they've lost half of their friends that they have because they don't agree on what animal, whether you're a donkey or elephant, that kills me. Because in my mind, everyone, and I know I'm specifically talking about United States politics, but you can put any country in there with politics. If there's such a thing as two sides to any politics, then it's the same thing. When you look at people who are choosing a different opinion because their beliefs are different and saying you're my enemy, you're basically ripping apart half of yourself. And it's the same thing with the virus and the mask, what it means to you. For the first 2 months, the virus came along, I wore my mask in fear. I don't want to kill my son. I don't want to harm my mother. But after that, I wore it as a sign of sympathy and empathy to other people. I wore it because I didn't, and it wasn't because, oh, I want to protect you, because you're going to get the virus if you need it for your own experience anyway. But I wore it so people didn't be fearful. I mean, I could walk into the store without a mask right now and I'm not afraid of it. But when I go in and I forget my mask and I make it 2 foot in the door, lots of people freeze up, they start shaking there. You can instantly feel the fear. I don't want to do that to anyone, and I know they should respect my beliefs as much as I should, but I don't have a belief about the mask. My belief about the mask was something that was a scientific thing until it became a political thing. And then it made it about, what are you doing, and it's sad, because the fact is, as much as science as we understand about the virus, there's still a lot of stuff that we don't. There's still a lot of evidence both ways. You could look at evidence from a group over here and they'll say, oh yeah, wearing a mask totally will help everyone. And over here, it's like, hey, the mask isn't going to help anyone. And they get their answers differently. But that's the spiritual journey personified. Everyone gets to it a different way. I mean, look at conspiracy theorists are a third of the spiritual community, because they had to find all of the things that they're going through for fear, for suppression, before they realize that they themselves don't need to be suppressed, or don't need to be, put in a death-defying escape every time. Everyone gets there in a different way. And it's what breaks my heart, because right now everyone's looking at the other person who wants the same thing in their life. They want to be free. They want to be healthy. They want to be able to take care of their families or themselves. They want to help people. They want to take care of the people who are worst off in our society, but they have different ways to get it. Specifically, the Democrat versus Republican thing. Democrats want to give money to people who are in the poorest neighborhoods to help fund certain things. And that's common sense. That makes good sense. And the Republicans want them to empower them by opening up jobs and lower tax. That also makes sense. So I could understand how any logical person could look at both sides of that and choose a side. And that's what politics is. Most people don't ingest politics and look at every nuance on both sides. They hear the one or two subjects that matter in their life. Oh, insurance? Well, my family's got pre-existing conditions. We need that. So I'm going to do, whoever's talking about that, that's what side I join. But the people who are eating and breathing this are taking offense. How would you take that side? How dare you? Do you know what that side is? Do you know what they stand? People, when they go to vote, they're and I'm not saying this a bad way, but they're selfishly going to vote. They're taking care of the one or two things. And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, no, it's not. And I think for those listening, I think you really hit the nail on the head by saying, like, I don't have a belief about something. Like, this is what I've been holding for myself, is doing my best to be able to see very contrasting beliefs about all of these different ideas. And I think that in many different ways is the call to mastery that we're on right now, is being able to see and recognize all of the polarity and all of the dualism and all of the this and that, and then we find that trinity place, right? Like the place in the middle where we're like the or and, right? And I think that's like the big call to action that we're on right now, is being brave enough in different ways to not necessarily have a true belief about something. And then in each and every moment, just tuning in with, that inner guide and the discernment to be able to when it presents itself, when the present is the present and presents itself, to just do the best that we can with the information at our disposal, and to make the best choices and actions, and the rehabilitation of the habits, of just of every single moment, that waking meditation of making the new choice. And yeah, I feel you, man. Like, it's so much to see all of it, right? It's so much to be able to see it. And I think especially for those of us that are really deeply empathic and are just these like beating hearts, it can be so much. And honestly, sometimes for myself, like this is again for me, like kind of goes into like the guilt complexes that I have, where more and more I'm being able to like let it go, but more and more I'm really noticing like, whoa, I'm not letting this affect me. Like, I'm seeing all of this breakdown and I'm not letting it break my heart. I'm not letting it negatively affect me. And I think it's really about just like finding that middle path as much as possible, which is for me is just like the space in between the breath, to be able to navigate in each and every moment, and then like helping community, having conversations, showing up for people, bringing the, you know, the bringers of new ideas, or just really asking someone at, you know, the checkout stand, like, how are you feeling today, what are you doing, like in every little moment that we can, just being that vibration of the Trinity, or of unity, or of, you know, of the love. And yeah, like I was saying, that to me really feels like the call to mastery that we're on. And because sometimes too, I feel that it's what has given me this perspective, and my interactions with Bella, like I think we're a different type of channel for sure, like you touched on. Um, so I don't remember a lot, but I'll have my own conversations. But more so for me, because of my background in theater, it's almost like becoming the character. So I get to really feel and see from her perspective what it just feels like. I may not be like aware of what is literally being said, but it's like more of just what it feels like to be her. So when I come out of the altered state, I may have had a couple of little things where she's like, hey, you need to look at this, or hey, we're going to have our conversation here. But more so, I just really feel what it feels like to be in their perspective. And also I've had a lot of interactions with the hybrids, and perhaps it's just my embodiment in different ways of who I know myself to be. So I have a different perspective. And sometimes, again, I love the authenticity that you bring, and you just like show up as that mirror. So I'm just being really raw and honest that a lot of what comes up for me in my earthbound human experience is this guilt, right? I come from an Irish Catholic family too, so it's like in my DNA. The guilt about, you know, having these connections and having these perspectives and offering sessions, but then also wanting to very much encourage other people and encourage people listening that everyone has counterparts, right? Like we all have our guides, we all have the ability to tap into information. And in my own journey, I'm really learning that it is so much about encouraging of the imagination, right? Of the play. So in your experience, maybe we'll kind of wind back the brief of the non-brief, Rob, and how you found your connection with Treb, how that started, and perhaps how you could offer inspiring or just playful ways that people can know that they have their own guides to be able to remember and connect to as we continue to go through this profound initiation of mastery.
Well, absolutely. The story with Treb is one I've shared many times, so I can give kind of a condensed version, even though it's still pretty long story. I
love story time.
Well, I'm glad this is the Gabbing part, right?
Yeah, exactly.
To start, we'll start with the very, very beginning of where my journey started. I got in all sorts of trouble as a kid. It started right after a sighting that I had with a few friends. We were out driving around. Yeah, still to this day, I understand why, but I never really shared that. And there was that the occupants of that specific UFO were entities that I had a traumatic experience with that I didn't remember. So that's what brought that out. After a long time of getting in trouble, I finally had my son, and my son had a lot of issues, the medical parts of it. And not knowing what was going on fully, it kept me on my toes, and I reverted from all the bad behavior and people that I were hanging around with, just because, you know, it's grown up time. You got a kid now, you got to buckle down and do what's best for the kid. Instantly falling in love with a kid is something that usually happens to parents. It's just, you can't help it, and you don't know why you're falling in love with this being that you never met, but you do, and it happened to me. I didn't even want to be a dad at that point in my life. I didn't like kids. But as soon as, you know, even waiting for him to be born, I was nervous because I knew I didn't like kids, and I knew that I was not really and ready to be a dad, but the moment I see him, I fell in love instantly, just instantly. Took away everything of reservations. And that started me on trying to straighten my stuff out. Once he became about 1.5, 2 years old, we found out a lot of the issues that he was having, how they were going to be long term, how a lot of the things that everyone in life goes through, or most people go through, you know, the finding someone to love, the possibility to travel or play sports if you want to, or play an instrument, all those things that I got to do as a kid that I loved and really appreciated, that wasn't going to be in the cards for him. That, you know, just basically the way they described it, it was almost like just being alive past 20 was going to be a huge chore for him. So brutally broke my heart instantly and caused a lot of depression, a lot of mental spiraling. And that brought me, that and the car accident brought me into some drug addiction. I was prescribed pain medication. I took it. I noticed simultaneously with helping my pain, it also took away a lot of my emotional issues. I could actually focus on other things in life without getting bummed out too bad, with knowing that it was there, but not hyper focusing on the issues with my son. And that led into abusing it, getting kicked off, then going to by the doctor of taking medicine, then going to the streets to find it. And then when you're on the streets, that's not, you know, pain pills aren't the only drugs out there. You know, you can't find that. What else do you have? Heroin. Okay, heroin's there, and cocaine and meth and everything else. So basically I spent 9 years in a drug-induced haze, where only one thing in my life that I did do well, besides getting high, and that was taking care of my son and being with him. I saw a lot of people, like in drug houses, like you go to places that sell cocaine and you see people with kids. It's sad, and I'm going to try not to get emotional to talk about it. But, you know, 2-year-olds running around in the middle of a bunch of drugs, and you could tell that they're hungry, and nobody's paying attention to it. I've had to take kids in the kitchen and make them food in drug houses with nobody. I didn't know anyone in the house. Horrible stuff like that. And my son was still a focus, but also getting rid of my emotional mental pain was. So I spent a long time doing that. And then finally I didn't want to do that anymore, because I had gotten to the worst place of, you know, the person that I knew and loved was gone. It was replaced by someone who just hunted for drugs all the time, who didn't really emotionally care about anything but my son. You know, my parents, I quit spending time with them. I even stole from a few people that I loved, and, you know, it was too much. So I reverted back into my desire to just shift and focus on my son. So I got clean. It took me a while. I went through the standard methadone clinics, which made it worse, and then detoxed from that to another medication, and finally just got off everything. And eventually, during that process of trying to get clean, I found myself again. I found the emotions that I hadn't had since I was a teenager. I found that I could look at a tree out in the middle of the field with the sun behind it and just melt my heart. Or when I pet my dog that's been living with me for 3 years, I no longer saw it as just a dog, you know. It was a being who was happy to see me, who could emotionally connect with me. And I didn't have those things when I was on drugs. It's like you lose a part of your soul and a part of yourself. After that, I was raised Christian. My whole family was Christian, church, God, all really big things in our life. There was a lot of hypocrisy in the church we went to, and a lot of questions that I didn't get good answers for, that I didn't like. You know, well, why is this? Well, because the Bible said. Why does the Bible say that? Well, you know, God said no. This guy who wrote that chapter said that. Well, he was told by God. Well, why doesn't God talk to anyone now? You know, all these things just circular over and over, and never getting a good result for the answer. So I said, you know, I've had experiences when I was a kid that made me know that there was more things out there than just what we were being told. Like my grandmother, who died before I was born, I was able to see her and know things about my mom when she was a kid. All these little things, all these things that were just different. So I said one thing that I always got into before when I was a little kid, as I was leaving the Christianity thing, was like ghost, paranormal activity, stuff like that. So one place claimed that they could tell you what happens after death because they talked to the people. So semi-skeptically, I went there and I got a perfect reading and I joined the church. And I always said, I wish I could do this. You can, everybody can. Yeah, everyone can. Stay here. There's a meditation afterwards. It was a spiritualism church or a spiritualist church. They're called different things, different locations, but they're pretty much both the same thing. It's like a new age Christianity almost, because there's the Bible and there's Jesus there, which was something I was somewhat comfortable with, being Christian my whole life, plus that side that I had been looking for. So I went there and they taught me a lot. I was able to, by the time I left that church, I was able to receive not much, but like little flashes of pictures or little ideas in my head. Not pictures per se, but like worded pictures. So it would come in without hearing the word. I would just know that, like a telephone wire was one of them, the little word I got. And I found out through not remembering since I was a child that one of my parents' friends' children died when he was 7 or 8 by hitting a downed electric wire. So these little things added up. Eventually, it was a church, so there was dogma, and there was disagreements, and then there was an issue, and I just left. I was like, I can't do it. I found different meditations. One that worked for me was the Hemi-Sync Gateway experience by the Monroe Institute, which is binaural beats. It's like different sound waves in different ears create a synchronization in the hemispheres of the brain and can actually take you to the delta state, the theta state and all of that. I used it, great success. Instantly, the plateau of meditation I had was gone, and I learned a lot of new cool things. I was able to leave my body a few times, so I liked it, and I kept doing it, and one day I did it. Now, it's funny, these things teach you how to get to a step that's 21, so you count to 21, and eventually you get to the biggest state or deepest state of consciousness. Well, I was already able to go kind of deep, but one day I had a messed up day, and I'm like, what happens if you go beyond 21? And I said 21 and more, I just thinking what's after 21. And that day when I connected in meditation, that's when I first met Treb. And Treb, if you don't know who Treb is, if any of you don't know, he's a gigantic reptilian human hybrid, 7.5 feet, scary looking, and my heart dropped when I saw him because it scared the shit out of me. And I instantly felt this gigantic love, something that I only had felt in reverse for my kid. But it was coming to me. And I was like, what is this? And I felt that calmness instantly. And needless to say, we had to have a chat at that point. It was a short chat, and it was like, hey, we're connected. A lot of things in reality don't feel or look the same. There's a lot more to it. And instantly I thought I went insane. I thought I broke my brain. Eventually I even went to the ER, and the doctor said, well, these meditations you're messing with could mess up some brain signal. It could be putting you to sleep while you're awake and you're just having vivid dreams. So I said, oh, geez, yeah, thank God. Maybe I'm not, maybe I'm not insane, or maybe I didn't break myself with these meditations. Finally, I said 3 or 4 days went by. And by this time, to make sure you understand how important this was, me not meditating for 3 days, at that point in my life, I was literally meditating 3 times a day between 20 and 45 minutes. And then when I wasn't meditating, I used a closed eye technique, which I could do anytime I wanted. At that time, I was babysitting like 7 kids. So I could literally, while they're watching cartoons or while they're taking a nap, I can close my eyes and just listen. That's all it is. You don't have to do anything or visualize or think about something. You just close your eyes and observe through your ears. And I did this for like 4 hours a day, sometimes 5 hours, plus the 1.5 to 2 hours of meditation per day. It was a lot of meditation. That's all. That replaced my drug use. You know what I mean? I was addicted to drugs, then I'm addicted to meditation because it's the only thing that made me feel okay and balanced and right internally. And I didn't meditate for 3 days after I met Trev. I was scared shitless. I didn't want to do that again, but the curiosity got the best of me, and I had to see what it was about. So I did it, and there he is again. And we talked, and we kept meeting. And I actually, most people don't know this. They've heard the story of me connecting to Trev. They might have maybe heard this obscure fact, but I actually connected with Trev for 2 whole years before I actually said, hey, can you share this information with other people? I've seen it done through channeling. Can we channel? And he's like, yeah, if you want to channel, we can do that. So we worked together. I looked online. He was able to finally come through me after we practiced and did some work together. And that's when I started channeling. I didn't trust myself to deliver the message because I knew I'd mess it up. And I didn't have answers like he does. Like anything you ask him, he can tell you, yeah, this is the situation. I didn't have that. I didn't have faith in myself or trust in myself that I could do that. So boom, he comes through. And within the first 4 to 8 times I ever channeled, I went straight to YouTube. I was like, all right, let's get this out there.
Wow.
Yeah, it was horrible though. I like the first 2 years I channeled. I don't have it public anymore on YouTube, not because it was invaluable or not valuable, but because the connection was so weird. It took me so long to build that connection properly. And I have said a few times, you know, some people who do go to YouTube, they start channeling, they jump right on. When I've said those things, I never meant it as an insult to people who are excited to channel because I did the same thing. My whole concern goes back to the people using channeling as a tool to make the decisions for themselves. Everyone knows that there are a lot of people who enjoy channeling and use it to help reflect the right things for them. You know, they take some things that are said in channeling and really hold on to them, and they let others go. But there are some people who use channeling as some people use religion. They're using it as, I have to live my life through this message or this way exactly. And they give away all of their own power. So when you don't have your channeling set up where it's fluid because you haven't practiced it, and that's the only way channeling can become good, is through practicing it. Because when you first do it, it's like riding a bike. You're going to swerve, you're going to, you know, and it's not that it's not useful or helpful to other people. So if anyone's ever heard that interview, I never meant it, because someone came to me and said, you know, I saw you say that people shouldn't just jump on YouTube like you did, that you regretted doing that. But I think it's great. I did that. And it's not for that reason. It's because some people don't or refuse to discern. But then again, you look back and what's the final answer? You can't be the person who dictates that person's future or that person's path or that person's creation if they want to watch channeling and live every word by it. Because they're going to learn eventually in their own life that you can't live through the words of other people or other entities, or that even the greatest channeled entity in the world can never tell you more about yourself than you can do. And that's why I love Trev, because that's one of the first things he shared with the collective. You know, I butcher this saying every time because I don't remember it, but it's something to the effect that when it comes to yourself, you know you're the authority of your energy more than even the longest, wisest living entity in the universe, and that your connection to your higher self is more valuable than all of that, because that is you. It's the alignment with you, and that's what you need to connect to get all the answers. You know, channeling is good for reflecting answers. Like, you can walk to the guy on the street who's just sitting there eating a sandwich, and he might say something that puts everything you've gone through in the last year into perspective instantly. That's what we do to create for ourselves.
And that's channeling too, right? You know, like that's when we're really in our own zone, in our flow. Anytime that we're like really being our authentic self, like that's a form of channeling. Like vocal channeling is just one type of channeling. And in that way, these beings definitely, as they always say, they're really just the reflection, the mirrors of our higher selves. And then, it's like more and more, I think it's happening that people are connecting to their guides, right? to these different differentiated beings, and more people are knowing that we all have the ability to do it, and then more people are also knowing that it is just our natural state of being, you know, to just be ourselves. And yeah, these amazing pieces of source wisdom can come through the guy at the bus stop, and you're like, hey, you're channeling, man. We're all channeling the amazing human entity channeling. um and thank you so much for sharing that story. I actually had not heard your entire backstory. So I was really excited to ask you that question. And what a story. And thank you again so much just for being this representative of deep authenticity and being the way shower of moving through density and limitation. And I had always sensed that in your being and found that so inspiring, but I really didn't know the depths that you traveled through. So thank you. Thank you for being yourself, and thank you for sharing that. And I think it's what makes your channeling so effervescent for me to listen to. Like, I was getting ready to talk today. I was listening to more Trev, and I was just, honestly, I couldn't even keep up with the words. And that's what I love about the energy that comes from a lot of these different entities. It, for me, isn't so much about the words. Yeah, of course we can get things, but for me it's just the energy, it's the essence of it. And it, what a voice you have, like the tone of the voice that you have, or then that Treb utilizes it, and it's just so deeply loving. And I can feel that love that you speak about, that you felt reflected back to you when you first met him, and to feel the unconditional love of a father to a son, and then from different beings back to us, from God to us. And the way that you describe it and the love that Treb has is so palpable. And being able to utilize it as a mirror for the essence of what we all are. I think anyone that has listened to Treb and also hears it in the way that you tell story and the level of authenticity that you have, that that depth of love is just so strong. So I'm curious, and again, this kind of winds to what I was, where I kind of started this idea, was asking this journey and asking, for you, it was these different brainwave meditations that helped initiate the state. In my own experience with Bella, because I had a 10-year journey before I started knowing that it was time to share publicly. And for me, what really kind of clicked it was the expansion of the imagination. So for you, in your process of beginning to vocalize after the 2 years of connecting with him, was there that bit of fear still left that you had to move through? Or if you can kind of break it down for us, what was it like? Was it just sounds? Was it the toning first? What started to come through first? How did you break through?
Um, with all of it starting first, the meditation, the in-depth meditation that I was doing was out-of-body meditation, astral projection. Even though it's not controlled, still to this day, I can willingly leave my body whenever I want. I just can't control where I go when I do. I could end up anywhere when I do. So it was learning how to do that, how to continue mastering that. The vocalizations came in afterwards. Trev and I made up this mantra of stars and planets, things that were connected to me energetically. Because he said you need to use sounds and words that are important to you, and use them to get your throat chakra moving. Because I had throat chakra issues. I still do in some ways. I've never met a verbal channeler who doesn't have at least some resistance in the throat chakra. And I think that's the reason why they also verbally channel, to help push that energy through. But with that was part of it. But what was interesting, well, I'll get back to that in a minute. So we get through all these techniques, because I was very heavy in the techniques back then, especially. Like, what now takes me about 5 minutes to completely neutralize my energy and then 2 minutes to connect, used to take me almost an hour and a half, because I would have to do the same thing that I do now. It just took me a lot longer. My neutralizing, for me, Treb said with the type of energy that I have and the level of trance that I go into, that the most neutral energy that I can achieve is the best. He also said that in bringing forward the energy to activate my throat chakra as heavily as I could, because I could already push energy through my chakras. This is something that I was learning in the 2 years that I knew Treb, partially through Treb, partially through other teachers, and would learn to get my energies pushed up. That listening thing is what helped me with that, because I started recognizing vibration as a feeling instead of just a sound. So like actual sound vibration, I could then feel intuitively, like 3 little dogs in the house, each with similar footsteps, not knowing the sound of the footstep, but the feeling of the footstep. I could tell what dog it is. I got to the point where I could say, well, that's Sidious. And then I open my eyes and there he is right there. I'm like, yeah, that's great. So translating vibration was important for me because it helped me manipulate my own vibration. And like I said, I was very technique heavy, still am. And that's because I'm a mechanical person. Like everything that happens, I need to know why and how. But that's also the reason why I had to go into deep trance. I know now, looking back, that if I ever would have tried to go into semi-trance or like fully conscious channeling, I never would have been able to do it. I can conscious channel now, but that's because I built such a great connection with Treb and Ardiv. And I still don't do it publicly because each time I do it, I have to stop and say, what was that? You know, I don't want my mind involved with it. My mind's too fixated on the details. So my personality type, all of my strengths and all of my weaknesses, we accounted for all of those, and we built the techniques that were best for them. And eventually we get to the sound vibration and the mantra, which helped me open up my throat chakra. But after I was channeling for about a year, then the thing that you guys hear when I do my oming now, if you've ever watched a video or a live session, you'll see me start oming. You hear this very loud vibrating.
Oh, it's amazing. The harmonics in it and the overtones. You're like your own choir when it comes to it. It's almost like the Tibetan throat singing. Like it's remarkable. Yeah, it's amazing. You should do a record just of that. I would listen to it like for reals.
Well, a lot of people have said it. Me and Clean actually thought about recording some of that just for people to help get into their trance. But
I'm on board with that. Let's make a record. Let's do it. Cut an album, Rob, for sure. Yeah. Sorry, but so that came later.
Without ever trying, just one day I was sitting there doing my ohm, and all of a sudden it just kicked into this more guttural sound. I'm like, holy crap. I actually had to stop and restart my neutralizing from that point. And of course, that was back when it wasn't an hour and a half, but it was almost 20 minutes. And needless to say, the person who was waiting for me wasn't happy that I had to restart. But I was just surprised, so strong by it. So this was a natural part, but now that I do it, that's part of the reason why instead of 30 minutes, it only takes, 7 minutes, 3 minutes to get into the connection out, but 7 minutes to neutralize plus that. So now I took all these techniques that I was doing, 100 techniques, and now it's mostly intuitive. Even when I'm oming, there's 2 different connections that I make. And when I connect with Metatron, amazingly, I don't even ohm. But when I'm connecting with Treb Ardiv, it's 2 different types of ohms. Both of them are intuitive to where my chakra energies need to be. So sometimes you'll hear the very fast, repetitive ohm, 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 and sometimes the very long, drawn out, and sometimes the ups and downs and up. And that's just all intuited by me in the moment. I don't know what sounds affect what area. I just know that I need to take it. So that's almost a channeling of itself, but I'm conscious there.
Yeah.
I'm still mentally and connected to it.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I really do feel like that is so helpful for people listening that are excited to connect with their own beings, because it is such a process. And I think just people listening, hearing from both of us that it is just like, it's one thing builds on another, then you begin to create things together, and then these spontaneous things happen. And it really is just the commitment. And if it really is something that's fully exciting for us, of being able to just continue to do it. And then for me, as well, it was really playing with the idea of like, so what? Like, if it's real or not, like, whatever. Just again, kind of going back to the play and the imagination part of it for me was a really big part of it. And then these different things build, you build upon the methods or the techniques or the breathing changes. And I also had once Bella really began to solidify as herself. That's the tone just came through one day for me as well, which is kind of an interesting match because, and it is a specific melody that always comes through every time, but it'll be slightly different every day. It'll be a little bit drawn out or maybe in a slightly different key, even though it's still the same melody. I may need different adjustments and we'll start in a different key. So that's really interesting that we have that match. But just for people listening that are playing with this, I think it's so encouraging to hear both of us say that it isn't like you just sit down one day and you're like got monologues spewing out of you. Like it is a process and it's so much fun. Would you say that you had fun once you fully locked into it?
Oh, I still do. Like,
Oh, yeah.
as a professional channeler now, it just isn't channeling. I've got to set up events, got to answer emails. Those parts of my
Oh,
experience,
sure.
not fun at all.
Sure. But I mean,
Channeling is always fun.
sure, the process of once you've learned how to do it, but even the process of like
Yes.
channeling the channel, right? Even the process of learning how to do it. Once you sink into it and maybe you get past that initial fear response or the initial doubt responses and then you just really kind of feel held by the being, it's so much fun to go through the process of learning how to do it.
Yeah, and that's the thing I didn't really answer to when you asked me earlier. I'm sorry, like my
Yeah,
mind wanders sometimes.
mine too. It's good.
there was there was a self doubt when it first happened, but after enough experiences for me, as far as the fear, I never had a fear of the experience once I knew my brain was working correctly and that this was happening with other people. Then I'm like, okay, now we've got something to work with. But my biggest energies, you said something that resonated with me very strongly. You said, so what if it isn't real? What if it's fake? What if it's just imagination? Who cares? The guy at the spiritualism church, when I said I'm having trouble because every time I pick something up, I'm not sure if I am saying it in my head or if something else is showing me. How do you get past that? He said the only way that you can get past it is if you know every time that it's real.
Mm,
Even if it doesn't start by being real, it will
mm,
eventually get there because you're allowing. And that's what I found out. The key to
mm,
channeling, no matter how you do it, no matter what you're connecting with, and like you said, there's 100 different, a million types of channeling. You can
mhm.
dance, you can sing, you can, hammer nails all day, and that can be a form of channeling. Just when you know that you can trust yourself in the act
Mm,
and that you're putting true level of excitement there, then you'll know that you'll get it no matter what you're doing. And if you know that what you get is right, even if it doesn't start off being right, it will
mhm,
eventually be right because you're
mhm,
in the vibration of acceptance and in the vibration of being correct. So
mm,
that it's a flow. And there's nothing I can explain. If I know for a fact, if I didn't have this obsessive excitement for meditation, I never would have been able to channel because
mm,
once I learned I could channel, then my
mm,
meditation excitement went to channeling excitement.
mm,
I'm the reason I got addicted to drugs is because my personality is all or nothing.
mhm,
You either have all of me or you have none of it. And when I found an excitement in meditation, I put
mhm.
every bit of myself. When I put myself in a drug use, I was the best. There wasn't anyone out there who could. I mean, I I was so good at it that literally other drug users who had used 4 times longer than I have said, "You're
Mm,
going to kill yourself." And I was like, "No, I could drive home." So that's how I rolled. And no matter what, I built myself up to that extreme level.
mm,
And once I found out that I had the possibility of channeling it, nothing could have stopped me. But that's what it requires. It requires putting all of yourself into it.
mhm,
Channeling
mhm,
doesn't happen when you're just like, maybe I could channel, I'll try. And
Right.
that's what I tell people who come to get class. I'm like, if you want to channel, you have to live, breathe, and eat it. If you
Mm,
want to do channeling, you have to be in all of the
mm.
excitements and things that are involved with channeling.
Yes. In whatever way that that means for us, I love that there's such a precise and general way that that can be translated in terms of being healthily obsessed with whatever your excitement is. And that takes me to, again, it's finding this is where we're at right now. It's somehow still finding that balance with it, right? And knowing that things are going to present in life where we are going to be called to be equally with the earth and equally embodied in the physical reality. As far as we can go out is going to then require as far deep as we can go in, and finding that space of the balance, again, kind of the Trinity, or the space in between the spaces. But if it really is our true passion or true excitement, we can be obsessed with it. And it is going to put us in that balanced state if it really is our balanced excitement, our true, right? Our true alignment. And I really like that idea, because I'm someone that it operates the same way. I'm all or nothing. I had my theater was all or nothing. I had a moment there. Well, I guess it wasn't all or nothing, but I caught myself in terms of drug addiction and alcoholism. I was almost all, I was almost really good at that. And then I went, whoa. Um, and there is, yeah, there's such a, again, you have a way just of speaking that I think comes from the certain training that you first went through of being able to energetically feel and determine things like you were sharing. And of course, that's almost like an obvious, right? But there's a way that you say it and a way that you translate it that it actually like vibrates through your being, that I can feel that. And so you have a level of communication with that. And so when you said it in that way of being like obsessed with your excitement, there is the frequency of that implies that then of course it's going to be balanced if it really is your true form of excitement. So I'm just receiving that and kind of tucking that in my pocket to carry that with me, is be obsessed with your joy, be obsessed with your excitement. And if it really is for you, it's going to be a healthy obsession. And then all things are going to lead from there, right? In terms of the next level of the lesson. Yeah.
That's it. And this is the thing too that I realized about addiction.
Mm.
Addiction has the, it's implied that it's a bad thing, and it's
Mm.
implied that because most of the things we talk about that we're addicted to
Mm.
aren't good for us. They give us bad, excuse me, give us bad experiences. When you're addicted to drugs, your body can go crazy, your brain can go nuts. When you're addicted to food, you get
Mm.
fat and unhealthy. But what happens if you're addicted to meditation or
Mm.
kind acts to other people, or drinking water? All these things don't have a negative consequence. And I've met people who were able to do the types of drugs I were. They weren't doing it in frequency that I was, obviously, but they could party all weekend long, and then they set it down and not think about it until it was time to party again.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was an addiction because without it, I didn't feel okay. And
Mm.
that's not an energy of addiction. It's an energy of dependence. So
Mm.
addiction just means you like something so much you'll do it all the time,
Mm.
which is passion. That's the
Mm.
same word. But we put a negative expression on so many of these things. And that's what Trev said. You have a mindset
Mm.
where addiction is a bad thing, but it's also a strength if you put it in
Mm.
the right direction.
Mm.
If you put that, if you were a businessman, they would call you a go-getter,
Mm.
and it's an implied energy that the passion flows through you, and follow it. And that's what the basic thing that every channeler who tells you how to create your reality has ever
Mm-hmm.
told you. And it just happened naturally, and it happened because of all the things that happened before me. And that's a lot of people are like, man, you wasted 9 years of your life getting high, missed time with your family, all this stuff. I bet you'd do it all over again. You'd do it differently. And I'm, nope, nope, I
Mm.
would not, because that would not have led me to be here at this moment, which all the subsequent things that I love, my channeling, my children, Kalima doing this, talking with you right now, wouldn't be here if I didn't.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And that's what the whole human experience is all about. And I think there's certain ones of us, there's certain people that choose to perhaps, have an experience of diving deeper than other people, or it just appears to look a different way. Everyone has a different level of density that they're exploring, or different ways that density represents itself. And I love that about I just love words too. I love like really feeling and analyzing the true definition of a word, and then being like, oh, perhaps we don't have a connotation, like, or it's just a connotation and not the actual definition. And that's a really interesting one to play with, the idea of addiction. Because even when you say, like, oh, be addicted to meditation, my mind goes to like, well, you could do anything, even if it's a good thing, out of balance. But then you brought in the differentiation that's like, no, well, that's a dependency. You could have a dependency on meditation, and that's a different idea. But having an addiction to meditation, that's just something you like to do a lot. And so I love that, because there was almost like the part of my contrarian that wanted to like voice up and be like, whoa, like, wait a minute, Rob. And then you explained it. And I just love that. And I love the subtleties of language is really fun and really important. And as a channel, that's something that we're required to be able to have in different ways, a good vocabulary. Was that part of your experience in terms of being guided to read more or explore more once you really made the vocal connection with Treb and Ardif, or is that part of your experience of being so deep in that it just really does come from this external source, or are they pulling from your brain and your lexicon? I'm just curious.
Yeah, for me, I've always been bad at English, and I've always been bad at writing and speaking it. So I mess it up a lot. And it's funny because Kalina, when I met her, she's one of the language proper, like, no, that's not the right context of the word. So we always had that experience when I first started channeling. Treb was using my words because he's pulling it straight out. That didn't change till Ardif got there. Now, the good thing is that I can say one thing that helped me was Kalima's reflections, and also the written, because if you go to my Facebook 10 years ago, you'll laugh. You'll be like, what are you trying to say? I don't even, there's like extra J's and K's with words that don't have any of those letters. I wasn't correcting my typing. I just go through it because I was so excited to communicate. And now you hear artists speak, and it's like, that was intentionally said for that reason. And even though you can hear one or two wrong words slip in once in a while, usually it's when I'm not fully neutralized before I start. And then 5 minutes in, it doesn't happen anymore. But that is very much something that Ardif's been able to bypass, but Treb can't. So it's like two different types of connections. Yeah, Treb still uses words that don't exist all the time. Like every time he'll use words that I'm like, dude, what? No, Trip, that's not a word.
I love that though. Like, I love that. And to me, like, that kind of, again, brings it back to this idea of like fun, of play, of not taking this very serious experience so seriously, because I think some of us, I mean, that's really the whole experience that we're in, is just taking all of this density so seriously. And then to have these beings that are these very, and yes, there may be some level of ownership in terms of the channel of reading more and, searching for different vocabulary words or whatever, but then there also allows this just like amount of freedom for, again, the frequency to come through, right? So I think I think it's great. And I go back and forth as to being like, okay, I am excited to read more about physics, or I am excited to read just more, like older literature, like older, like Emily Dickinson. So I have like just wider, more different vocabulary, but I go in and out of having excitement around that. But again, I think it's something that's really fun in terms of looking at just these different connections and how the different states of channeling can represent itself even in vocal channeling, right? So for me, I'm like very aware that most of what comes through is being pulled from my brain, is being pulled from my lexicon. There's some times where at least certain words or concepts, of course, like actual information or this or that, or messages for the individual is coming from beyond my scope of awareness. But in terms of her ability to communicate these concepts and ideas, there has to be a certain level of vocabulary. But I go in and out of that being my excitement or not. Sometimes I'm like, I don't really want to do my homework, my home play. Sorry, I don't, that's not my excitement. I want to go and sit and meditate with the trees, and being able to tap into that, again, just the frequency and the state of being, to allow, even if it's a made up word or a incorrect congregation of the verb. I forget what that word is. I don't even know what it is when you mess the verbs around, but you know what I mean. People listening know what I mean. And there, I just did it right there as an example of like, there is an importance of language, there is an importance of grammar and appropriate speech. But then also, I think as we move into perhaps the new wave of being, there's going to be new words, and it'll be okay to see each other in the street and be like,
Yeah.
love, yeah.
It's this thing has got a balance too with it, just like everything else does. It's, if you don't have the words to communicate what you want to be able to communicate, it's a rough thing. And then when you want to communicate something and there are no words for it, that's the other thing. That's why I've always told people is we'll eventually get to the whole telepathy, because words just fail us on so many levels. And for me, I'm kind of like a curious person anyway. Like I said, mechanically, my brain needs to know the what's and whys. So I've never really had a desire to expand something non-organically. Like when I'm watching something and then I hear about some figure in history that I never heard about, I instantly go look it up. I'm like, who is this person? I don't know this person. And then I'll look it up and then I'll say, oh, this was related to the wars in this region at this time. And then I'll look that up. Or something about science. So I'm naturally always doing that anyway. But when it comes to for the channeling, the only time I really have ever done that, when I first started channeling with Treb, I had to look at other channelers because I had to see what was out there. I had to see if people were having similar conversations with their guides that I was with Treb. And back then, the only person out was Bashar, Lee Carroll, and a couple of others. Like Seth was on there too, internet or on YouTube a few times. So there was very few people out there. But what I heard, I was like, wow, that's pretty similar to what Trevor was saying, just in different terms. And I did notice that after hearing enough of that, then Trev was able to utilize words that came from the community of the spiritual community that I didn't have in my arsenal. So it ended up being a good thing, but it never was an intentional. The only other example of when I do look into things now is if we get questions about something, Ardif and Treb might not be able to reference it if they don't know what the word is to it. Like, hey, what about the red people from the planet Chumbawamba or something question that might come up. And they're like, what is that word? We don't galactically call something Chumbawamba. So, I'm sorry, that's a stupid word that just came in my head. But so whatever that word is that I don't know, I'll go look up. And then the next time Ardif or Treb, then I'll have an idea of what the hell is being talked about. But besides that, there's really no direct intention for me to do it, I think.
Yeah, and it comes and goes, like you were saying, it's the balance, and it comes and goes with the waves of it, of following our excitement or the knowing in times where it is perhaps not our true excitement, but kind of our ability to respond, the responsibility of it to look it up, or there is just like pushing through the little bit of complacency or whatever. There's always these balancing points, but I just think it's fun too to be able to expand the expression of play for people as they're potentially excited to connect with their own counterparts, that it doesn't have to be so spiritual or so intellectual. It really can just be this whole kind of wild, wacky Chumbawamba experience, and accuracy eventually will come through. Oh, I believe it's conjugate, when you're going to conjugate a verb. Anyways, I just popped through.
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
But I had a question for you kind of about that. So you were one of the earlier people starting to step forward and doing this. You had a few, like you were saying, that you were referencing, but how was it for you in terms of putting stuff up on YouTube around this? Was there fear when you went to do this? Was it just so exciting that there wasn't fear? Like, what was that experience like for you?
Because it was such a really kind of unknown thing, it's the collective, because it was such a small part of that internet collective, there wasn't a whole bunch of fear there. Uh, my son's mom, I was living with her, my son, no one else really knew about it. So it wasn't a big deal to me. I didn't talk about it in front of anyone who lived around. Like I said, yeah, I'm doing something on the internet, was sharing some of my spiritual experience. And they're like, oh, okay, that's fine. But nobody knew about it. So for the first 2 years I did, nobody had a clue. Then as it began to be more a part of my life and I was spending longer parts, people would ask and I would give the bare minimum explanation to keep them from asking more questions. So there was always a fear in connecting with those that I loved and fear of judgment. I still, to this day, I have the same complex where I avoid certain conversations with certain people about something that might be happening in my life or their life, just because my fear that the same thing that's going on with politics right now will happen, where they're so invested in me believing or not believing something that they would cut their ties with me just because of something that I see as not relevant. But so I kept away from it. And it was funny because my parents knew I was doing something on the internet. The first way they found out was when I was getting a divorce from my son's mom. And then I had to come stay with them 3 days out of the week because the arrangement was I stay at the house with my son because that was where all of his equipment, his supplies, all that stuff was. And then his mom would come in for 3 days and I would go, and the only person I had. And by then I was already doing it professionally. So I was like, I got to use your computer, Dad. I've got to use your whole computer room and be left alone for a few hours. And it's like, what? And I said, sit down. We need to talk. And that's when we had to talk. And my parents, hardcore Christians, it wasn't an easy talk. My mom especially, she was freaking out. I had to try to get her to focus and calm down about it. But there was fear in my personal life, but I didn't care on the internet.
Yeah, that's the moment that I'm curious about. So you just put stuff up and then people found out later, but what was the moment like when you were like, I'm just going to put this up? Like, were you just so genuinely excited that it was kind of like you were like just braving whatever the quote unquote repercussions might be?
Yeah, I didn't care about the repercussions on the internet because I was so excited.
There we go.
Like the whole reason that me and Trev were working towards channeling is so that I could share it with people.
Right.
Because I saw that there was. So the first time I channeled on YouTube, I'm not wearing a shirt. For me, I swear to God. So you could see me from like here up, naked shoulders. I think a pizza box was in the background.
Yes. Bare bones, super authentic.
Yeah. Take it or leave it. And it was Trev. And, you know, even though Trev's not as loving and exciting then as he is now, as far as how he came through me. Oh, he was, but just not the expression through me. Sure. Like it was more monotone because that was like my fourth time I did it.
Yeah.
The message, you could feel it for those people who are intuitive to feel or just who understand what love is. They could pick that up. I didn't get one back. The first video I put out, I was like, okay, maybe 10 or 15 people will see it. If it helps one person, I'm happy it was done.
Yeah. Yeah.
2,800 views within a couple weeks. And I was like, holy crap. A few thumbs down, but no bad comments. People are like, oh, that's cool. Or, yeah, I don't really know about reptilians, man. I'm going to pass on it. But nothing hateful, nothing horrible.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't worried about it. It didn't get reflected back. It wasn't until I began to do it professionally when I was like, okay, now I've got to break down my systems of financial worries and concerns and put my time and energy on the line to do this. And this is going to have to support me after a divorce where I owned my own house. Back then, I didn't have a house payment. It was like 50 or 60 bucks for the land tax or whatever. So I didn't have bills, and now I've got bills, and now I've got my son and Kalina and we all have to do this. So then there was a little fear, and then I also had become much more notarized by other people, became popular in our community. I had been offered a spot on the Tuning In documentary, and that's really what opened up a lot of field for me in that community, because people are like, holy crap, he's getting invited with the Daryl Ankas and the Lee Carrolls and the Jeffrey Hoppies and all of those, really, like Wendy Kennedy. That opened up that community, but people started noticing me, and I'm like, holy crap, this is all I'm going to do now for the rest of my life. And that's when people are like, go channel your mom's vagina, but saying in a much cruder way. And, oh yeah, I heard your interview about drugs. You look like a crackhead or some, stupid shit like that people say. But I have thick skin. I knew that when I came out, I was going to do it, but it just showed me the fear that I had about that being the only energy in my life that would provide, the financial, because I still, to this day, I have energy. I think fundamentally every human holds at least a small part of resistance about money. And that was my issue there. That came out. But most of the time you go to my videos, even if they're not watched a lot, or even if they have, 100,000 views on it, almost everyone, just the good comments outweigh the bad 95%, because people are there because they want to be there. It's not something that people just bump into YouTube,
Yeah.
So people have to actively go to search it, which means the people who are thumbing it down and making bad comment, they're actively searching it out too. So you're like, yeah, they're coming to be hateful, so forget about it.
And in my experiences too, I know that my experience is different. I've got at this point a little bit of a smaller following, but in my experiences, it really is like the inner refinement and really focusing on like the love or the belief systems that we're looking at, right? Of seeing these different things being reflected back to us as our own processes of all of the different parts of us that are still potentially in doubt or in fear or nervousness or whatever it is. And the more that we really refine that, the more and more we just keep getting that clear mirror back. And I know that's been my experience, but again, I'm playing with a much smaller pool and a rather specific pool as well at this point. So I think when we open ourselves up to the larger funhouse mirror, there's a larger opportunity for warps to come through. But I know in my experience as well with my family, the more that I really held the connection and knew my truth for myself, the more that my family was curious even or excited. At first, they were very, very scared. So I know that you mentioned too, in your own ways, you're even cautious about who you share this with, but for the most part, how has things shifted in terms of your personal relationships, however you want to answer? But I feel like it's beneficial for many people stepping out of whether it's the channeling closet or the hybrid closet or the contact closet. This is something that many of us go through, of how we are going to be received by our personal relationships.
It is. And what's funny is all the ones that I worried about back then ended up being fine, and the ones that I was fine with back then ended up being worrisome. Like the person who was there with me through the whole experience, my son's mom, we ended up getting a divorce. I was going down this path, she was going down her own path, and they weren't the same path. It wasn't anything bad. It was just we weren't the same people we were. But all the people who I was afraid to say something to, my mom, my dad, they ended up accepting it. Sometimes if we start talking about religious or spirituality and the things don't click, sometimes they'll be like, all right, well, let's switch the subject or something. And it's okay. It's just fine. Like Kalima said something in a conversation we had a couple months ago with my mom. And she's like, yeah, Yahweh's an asshole or something like that. And I looked like, what are you? Don't do that. And my mom's like, all right, let's change the conversation. So it's expected to have the differences there, but we all love each other. We're family.
Mm-hmm.
My dad, he was the biggest shocker. He was the most open-minded, so I didn't think it would be a huge deal with him. He had some past life experience, stuff like that. But before he died, he was just so happy, like literally. And I'll probably get emotional about this, but like a month before he died, me and Kalima had just finished off our first in-person channel panel, which was by far, hands down, the most successful professional thing that we had ever done to that point. And my dad, because he was from that generation where like, man, you provide, you got to do stuff. And then Kalina's involved, so he's like, good, you guys are doing it together, you know. He was just happy to see me be successful at something. That's all he wanted. That's all most parents want for their kids. But to see the level of success that I had done, me and Kalina put together, was very heartwarming for him, but also a sense of pride. You know, my dad was very prideful about his family, and he worried about me a lot. Like when I was doing the drugs and stuff, he was very concerned, and he saw me turn into this person who was happy, and that's all he cared about. And to see me go there, then it's like, it's like I don't have to worry about him no more. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I think he held out as long as he did, because at that point, all of us, but even my older sister to some degree, he was just like, you guys are all good now, you know? I don't have to worry about this stuff.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for your emotions and that big, beautiful beating heart. And it's so felt. And this is so what makes you, you, Rob. It really is. And thank you so much again, just for being you and being who you are for our community, and a way shower of, again, being able to really transcend darkness to light, and recognizing those differences of paths, right, too, is going back to a little bit of what you stated before, of being able to see that so gracefully and so wisely. And again, many of us know that, but it's when we hear someone express it and say it so authentically that we go, oh yeah, thanks, man. Like, I know that's okay. I can get through this challenge of whatever it is that I'm facing, you know, in my life. Like, thank you. And being able to feel that deep love and that connection that we have for people and for our families during these times of transformation. And it's that deep expression of our emotions that's going to get us through all of this, man. Like, really. And that's, again, going back to the feeling of the vibration, the vibrational translation of knowing what little paw pattern it is on the floor, right? Like, in each and every conversation and interaction and reflection, we're determining more and more and more those little paw patterns. And what you just shared is such a deep translation for us. And it's something that, again, is why I'm doing these talks like this, is because it's those authentic emotions and just the rawness that we're able to share with each other, that it's those moments that more and more I'm thinking these are the kinds of conversations that really help people. This is when we really get to step into our deepest channeling moments and be the voices of our selves, right? Channel ourselves rather than just the mirror, right? We love our beings. We love Ardeep, we love Treb, we love Bella, we love everyone, but these moments are what really, I feel like, sparks things for people. So again, thank you so deeply for being you and for sharing that
absolutely,
that deep feeling, because that's what it is. We all just want to see each other happy. We all just want to support each other, even through all of these polarities and all of the things that are going on. Most humans just want the same thing. We all just want to be loved and be supported and be free to explore, and we all just want to be happy. And this is actually kind of a really beautiful segue, because you mentioned the channel panel. And another thing that I've really witnessed with you and how you, again, utilize your potential impact is being able to share and bring community together. So you started the channel panel, and I was lucky enough to be on the online version of it when you guys did it a couple of years ago. But just to speak, however you want to do, if you want to talk about the channel panel itself, or also the importance of bringing community together, of continuing to lift each other up and honor those successes that we have as a community, and not further separating each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that too. I try to share my heart from where it is and what it is,
Yeah.
because if I went through all the shit times of my life and sharing something about that can help someone, it's worth sharing it. The same with the good times.
Yeah.
I knew coming to the public would require me to share, and I didn't realize how much I would share sometimes, or how important it was to share, but I appreciate that. And the channel panel is an amazing thing. I just opened up in the community with starting to do events and stuff online with other people. I had a friend of mine who I used to work with a lot, someone who used to be a good friend of mine, and he would invite me to do some stuff with him, and I would do that, and it was nice because before that, and even after that a lot, there wasn't a lot of channelers working together. There wasn't just a lot of that out there. So I saw how cool it was to see people hanging out and doing stuff. So I started doing a few events on my own, was doing a lot more events with other people. And most of the events I did weren't multi-channeler. They were just one, I was the only channeler there, or if another channeler would invite me to come with them. And then all of a sudden I find myself doing an online event with Wendy Kennedy, and I was like, that's amazing. You know, Wendy Kennedy is a huge name in the area of channeling, and she's really great channeler. So I was like, wow, that's great, you know. And I saw the impact that it had on me, being able to sit there and be in a receptive mode, like I'm getting ready to channel, and have this other guide sitting in this, you know, we're online doing this event, but we're still energetically tied to all of each other. And for the first time, I felt this really strong and powerful energy from another person's guide. And it actually moved me. It was very emotionally important for me. So I felt that, and I was like, this is amazing. So I invited a few channelers to do things, and I started doing a radio show, and I was inviting people to do it as a guest. And when me and Kalina had gotten together, she had been to some events where she was living out in Los Angeles, which is where they do most of the events for our community and a lot of the circle of channelers that I knew at that time. So she had been gone like to Nora Harold and seen her and a few other people. And at this time was right around the time I was invited to be the only new channeler on the Tuning In documentary, which, like I said earlier, opened up a lot of doors for me. So I had asked a few channelers, and they're like, no, you know, we're not really interested in doing that right now. And I noticed that besides like Wendy and Nora, those two did a lot of work together. They had been friends for years, like decades. So they did stuff. And then me and the guy who I used to be friends with, we used to do a lot of things together also. So it ended up being that it just wasn't commonplace. And once Kalina started becoming active and helping me with my own channeling, we had always talked about how it was exciting to bring channelers together, and it would be excitement, and we both just wanted to connect more channelers. So Kalina comes up with the idea of the name Channel Panel, and then I put all the contacts that I had made throughout the couple events that I did, plus knowing the fact that for people who didn't know who I was, I could show them, hey, look, I'm the only new channeler coming up on this. So they'll be like, hey, someone knows about this guy. So I was trying to, and I don't mean this in a bad way, I was trying to appeal to the professional side of them by saying, listen, you know, because I don't know these people. I don't know what motivates them. Are you doing this because you want to share your message? Are you doing it because of money? You're doing it for exposure? What? So I gave them all the angles. I said, this is a place where all of us can share energy. All of us can be a part of a bigger community and help bring the community together. And then I said, also, you can have people who never heard of you or seen you, and we'll pay you. So no matter what their motivation was, they would think about it, seriously consider it. And the few people who contacted us back, we talked with them for a while, and instantly we knew who the people we wanted to do the first one was with us, plus the person who I had been friends with for a long time. He had invited me to so many, so I was like, yeah, you got to come as well. So we opened up the very first channel panel, and I think we had 5 or 6 people, and it was an online thing, and it was amazing. It went really well. We had some tech issues, but for the most part, it went really great. A lot of people signed up, but the energy that was there was unlike anything any of us had really ever got to experience. Even the professional channelers who had been to multiple channeler events before in the past, because they've been doing it for decades, it just was a new experience for most of us, and it was a good one. That excited us, because Kalina and me both together came up with the idea of the channel panel, like getting multiple channelers together. Kalina tightened it up into a presentable thing called the channel panel that would look appeasing to people, that people can hear once and remember. And then we finally excited us so much, we said, we've got to do one live, And this is the first time we'd ever done this. And I didn't have a lot of money. I was just starting out on the professional level instead of doing it as a hobby, basically. I was helping people and taking donations. I started doing it full time. So we're like, we have to do this because it's important for our community to have all these powerful entities in one place, and to have communication between multiple channelers, and have a community for this. We have to do it. So we put money we didn't have on the line to get the venue. We told everyone we'd pay them X amount of dollars, and we just were crossing our fingers. Oh my God, I hope this works. If not, we're going to put ourselves in financial ruin. But screw it, we're going to do it, and we're doing it. And we trusted, and it ended up, we broke even, but that took care of that part. It was the most important thing, and that's the one I was talking about, that my dad, he was too sick to come. I wanted him and my mom to come, but he was too sick. But it was in Los Angeles. We're from Michigan. So we flew out there. It took us a week to get it ready. It was just so much intense stuff. Me and Kalina never threw an event before. We didn't know what it entailed. We learned quick. And we're Capricorns, so we adjusted and did what we did. But the energy of that was the most powerful experience personally that all of us had ever had. Channelers who have been doing it and working with other channelers, just even to this day, they're like, that was the most powerful, wonderful thing. And you came the year after that for our online event. And then 2017, we did another live one. And that had their Anka, which was another amazing, powerful, huge, great one. And then we planned to do it for 2018. And that's when we found out Kalina was pregnant. And since then, there hasn't been any more. Oh, no, we did do the 2018.
Yeah, that's
online.
the one. That's the one that I was a part of. I was the one after the next live one.
Yeah. Okay, so okay, so you were. I thought for some reason you did the 2016. Sorry about that.
No, it's all right. Time.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm telling you. So this was the whole energy that we wanted to do. And it ended up being something that everybody who participated and felt excited about. And when they did, they felt close to the community. And it brought a lot of energy together. And that's all me and Cleo wanted to do. Yeah. We actually have spent so much money in doing the live events that we broke even every time, because it's like, I had the 2017 one, or no, the 2015 one, it was like $12,000 for the rental to get everyone paid to fly out to get a hotel. It was just crazy, like 12.
Yeah, it's a lot to put on
$12,000 in my bank, right? So it was crazy, but the energy behind it was the one that was the most satisfying, most gratifying for everybody involved in it. And the people who came there were affected more by hearing people they had never heard before, having new perspectives thrown at them that they'd never got to hear, and being in a place where all this consciousness, because people are like, your guides are so powerful. I felt that. I was like, you weren't just feeling our guides, you're feeling every guide in here all hanging out in this one gigantic vacuum of energy, you know?
Absolutely.
So that's kind of the whole point of it. And that's what we ended up getting done with it. So
It's amazing. And I think it's so powerful that you guys hold that space and have held that space and do so even on your radio shows and all of these different podcasts. And just the sense of community that you guys build is really inspiring and impressive and sweet. And again, just really resonates just with this big, huge heart and being able to just throw yourself into the positive addiction of your excitement again is so palpable. And I think it's really important for those of us in the spiritual community, the channeling community, to know that there's enough space at the table for all of us, you know. And that's been my excitement with doing this. And I had so much fun doing that. And you know, I'm sure there'll be other opportunities for channel panels. And Ruben Langdon's show, I guess we're both alma maters of that, as well as Interview with Extra Dimensional. So more and more and more, there's these amazing creatives and storytellers and channelers and people within the community that are stepping up so that we can really usher in the new age, right? We need all of us together. We need all of our guides showing up to the party, bringing all of the different morsels and energies and frequencies and all that kind of stuff. So it's happening. We're creating the party. So I just wanted to share that bit of you and Kalina's journey and offering if people perhaps hadn't heard of that. And are those available? Can people go and get downloads or videos or recordings of the channel panels?
Yeah, absolutely. If they want to, the channelpanel.com has all of them archived. The 2015 you can buy it, but we also have it free out on both YouTube channels, the Channel Panel YouTube channel, also my ET Whisper. We have a copy up on both. And the 2015 one had 8 channelers for 2 days, so it's like 9 hours free of channeling. Wow. The 2016, I'm not sure if we released it publicly or not. We wanted to release the 2018 one because it was originally free. We gave everyone 24 hours to access, or 48 or something, for it for free, because everyone who joined, you know, knew that they were putting their time and energy in, that possibly after everyone saw it, you know, for free, they might not pay for it. So we're hoping to put up both those. We've only had one issue with the 2018 one. Out of everyone who did it, there was a couple people who said, well, you know, you said you were going to sell it afterwards, and we'd like you to keep selling it because our time and energy is worth. And that's not a wrong belief in my opinion either. People who have a belief about channeling for money and channeling for free, there's two different beliefs there, but I understand and agree with both of them. So yeah, we might not be able to put all of it out. We might just release it anyway and take the people out who don't want to be in it.
There you go. Cool.
Because we really want to get that out too. And I think if 2016 isn't out yet, it should be out soon, because we really, that's why we did it, to help the collective energy with it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you can go there, you can look through the bios of all the channelers. You can look through the recordings we do have public, and you can buy audio, video, the other ones if you want. But eventually all of them with the 2017 will end up, the live one will end up being free within the next year or so.
Beautiful.
And we do plan on doing a 2021 one too. Yeah. We don't know if it'll be live or online. That'll depend on a lot of things, but TBA, right?
Right. Exactly. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, so people can check out the channelpanel.com, and whatever is available will be there. And then maybe in the future, there'll be more surprises added, because you and Kalina are so amazing and have so much going on that everyone, I'm sure, understands and is so thankful for everything that you continue to provide for our community. And so are you currently still providing private sessions, or where can people find you? Where can we connect with Rob?
Yeah, I am. I still do private sessions 5 days a week. Calendar's backed up a couple months right now, but
nice.
It will get, yeah, but it'll get cleared up as I go to doing 2 a day soon. And with my son going back to his mom's on a more regular basis, I'm sure that it will be back to 2 a day, at least 2 weeks out of each month. So yeah, you can go to etwhisper.com. If you can't remember that, robgauthier.com, which is probably harder to remember, or ardif.com. They'll all get you to the same place. And then YouTube channel is the ET Whisper Rob Gauthier. If you type that in, it'll take you right to that. There's literally tens of thousands of hours of free material on that, hundreds of videos. And if you go to the Enlightenment Evolution Network channel, you can find all of the radio shows we did and all the radio shows that everyone on our network did. And we're going to be starting back our radio network soon too. So yeah, baby's old enough now where me and Kalina can give each other time. Yeah, and my sister's been helping us too, so we're gonna really get moving back on it now.
Oh, that's beautiful. A family affair for the rest of the ET family.
That's it.
Oh, well, thank you so much again for all that you guys do. What an amazing list of content. We're just like, woo, like, yes. So again, thank you so much, Rob, for being you, and a big thanks to Kalina as well. And it would be fun to have her on one time with the episode of Gabbing with Gita. Would be super sweet. But really, thank you so much for everything that you guys do for our community. And so to wrap up a little bow on the present, is there something that you would like to say for people listening that perhaps are just going through really challenging times, or are experiencing so much joy that they're feeling guilt, or just what's a little bit of the heart burst from Rob as we wrap up the bow on the present today?
I want to thank you too for saying all the beautiful, wonderful things about me and Kalina, and I'm sure she'll love to be on the show at some point too. I'm sure she will. She loves you. She's got a very close heart connection with you. Yeah. And things to say. I mean, there are a million things I could say, but I guess the most important one at this time, when things are either really great or really bad for you, or when they're in between and up and down, you just got to be yourself. You got to do what you enjoy, even if you're not finding things to enjoy. Just remember, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person or a negative person. It doesn't mean that you're not spiritual. A lot of people want to conflate the idea of spirituality with perfect experience or existence, and that's not how it works. We're on earth because we invite challenges to our experience, and that we need the level of disconnection that earth offers. And you have a choice to be connected and not be connected. But if you're connected all the time, it wouldn't be any fun. And if you're disconnected all the time, it wouldn't be any fun. So be gentle with yourself, because that's the one thing that I've done in my life that's given me the most pain, is when I'm not gentle with myself, or when I expect more out of myself than I need to. Because the simple fact is, if you come to earth to experience, then just showing up is enough. That's all we're really required to do from a soul level, is show up to the game. And if we're here and we're playing, that's a bonus. But if we're just here, that's good enough too. So just be gentle with yourself. Try to love yourself the best you can. It's a challenge for all of us sometimes. And try to remember that people who are going through this experience too, right next to you, even if it's not the same experience, or even if that experience looks like a really negative experience to you and you don't want to be a part of it, you don't have to be. But let's not beat each other up. There's been so much of this lately, and as much as it breaks my heart, and as much as I know that everyone needs that experience who's going through it, if we can prevent from adding to it for one person or for the entire collective, it's probably a better idea, in my opinion. But that's my opinion. Like I said, do your thing. If everyone does their thing and try to be as respectful for other people's things as you can, we're all going to end up in a better place. So even if you've never heard of me or seen me before today, I still love you, because I try to love all the pieces of myself, and we're all in this together. And honestly, if we remember that, we'll do okay.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. So many beautiful, beautiful messages of just the heart truth. And I keep learning more and more the beauty in people's voices. I love hearing people's voices. There is such a strength and a graceful grit in your voice, Rob, that I love it. It's so needed for us to be able to, again, get the resonance of the message and the vibrational translation. And so, from my heart to yours, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you for having me here, and thank you for doing for everyone what you're doing here by bringing reflective conversations. There might be one small thing that one of us said today that will get someone through for the next month. And that's the beauty of doing this. It's reflection time. Thank you.
It's reflection time. Thank you. Well, let's all take a nice deep inhale and exhale. And though our minds may be different, though our bodies may be different, it is through our hearts that we know our spirits are one. This has been Gabbing with Gita. Thank you so much for joining me, everyone. And a big thank you to Rob Gauthier. I think I mispronounced that, did I?
No, Gauthier,
Gauthier. Okay.
Gauthier, a million
Oh,
different ways.
a million different ways, all the vibrational translation. Thank you so much, Rob. Say goodbye.
Bye, guys. Love you. Thanks, Gita. I love you too.
Love you.